Maximize Business Value podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition their business on their terms. Our mission was born from the lessons we've learned from over 100 business transactions, which fuels our desire to share our experiences and wisdom so you can succeed. Now here's your host, CEO of Mastery Partners, Tom Bronson.
Hi, this is Tom Bronson, and welcome to Maximize Business Value, a podcast for business owners who are passionate about building long-term sustainable value in their businesses. This episode is part of our series on books written by Certified Exit Planning Advisors, or CEPAs. Now, I obtained my CEPA certification in 2019. Earlier this year, I was invited to participate with other CEPA authors in the author showcase at the Exit Planning Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I picked up some fantastic books. Today's is one of those. In this episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Rick J. Krebs, a CPA, entrepreneur, and M&A advisor, and principal at Business Sales Group and My Biz Value. And of course, he's the author of Sell Your Business by Design, Not by Default, a guide for selling your business for more money, a book written from the trenches and School of Hard Knocks. I love that. And it reads like that as well. His examples detail successes and failures. And like it says on his website, you'll learn the most from the failures. And by the way, what is it that I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt said, learn by the failures of others. You're not going to live long enough to make all the mistakes yourself. I love that. So welcome to Maximize Business Value, Rick.
Thank you, Tom. And I appreciate you having me here today. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about helping business owners make a better exit.
Well, and that's what I love about you, Rick, because you and I share that passion, and so many business owners really don't. They think that it's just going to happen for them. So, and it rarely does. You know, it's a process. It's a design. That's why I like the title of your book, Sell It by Design, Not by Default. So many businesses sell by default, and that's a terrible thing. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you became a certified exit planning advisor.
So I wanted to start a local chapter. I've been in the M&A business now for 12 years, and I wanted to be an influencer, and I wanted to start a local chapter of CEPAs. And this was the logical first step, right? To become a CEPA myself. And not just CEPAs, but people who are interested in becoming exit planning advisors. Because as we're going through this process, we're learning that it takes a team. You know, each of these disciplines are very specialized, and in order to be good at it, you have to be a specialist because there's so much knowledge in your profession. And so we have to assemble a team of people that will help the business owners when they're ready to sell. And so I wanted to do that. As I became a CEPA, to be honest, I thought that I would kind of half pay attention through the classes and do check emails, right? And the ADD kicks in a little bit. And so, but that wasn't the case. As I got into the material, it resonated with me. And I realized that Scott and Chris are starting a revolution here across, it's sweeping the country. More and more people are interested in exit planning. And I wanted to be part of that. And becoming a CEPA was a big part of that.
That's awesome. Now, did I read a press release? Did you guys actually start your chapter in Salt Lake already?
We did. Yep.
Awesome.
We started our chapter back in June, and we launched it, and we had a very successful launch. I was surprised. You know, I was expecting to get maybe 20, 30 people interested. We had 60 people in the room. Awesome. And so this is on the mind of not just business owners, but it's on the mind of attorneys, financial planners, CPAs. You know, this is, as I said, it's a revolution. It's something that's going to hit us. It's a huge wave. A lot of baby boomers are looking at retiring. They're thinking about a recession, right? So they want to get out. They don't want to be running their businesses when they're 75, 80 years old. They want to get out. So yeah, this is a big thing, and a lot of people are interested in it, and a lot of excitement I'm seeing.
I agree. We have a local chapter here in North Texas, and we sort of went on. It was challenged during COVID, but now that we're back from that hiatus, we're building every time. So it's kind of
Yeah.
fun. Now, your book, "Sell Your Business by Design, Not by Default," is full of what I'd call practical advice, right? That every business owner should read the book. And by the way, just so you know, just like always, we're going to put a link to the book on our website so that you can go buy one of these books. It's a great book. Mine, I don't know if you'll get one. Mine happens to be hand signed, right, by Rick, but I'll bet there might be a way you can get that. But
Says
it's full of what I think is practical advice. So every business owner should read this book and the other books that we've highlighted here. What was the inspiration for writing your book?
So in the past, in the M&A business, I am constantly talking to people about selling their business, right? And what I found, I specialize in the lower mid-market, which is our businesses with enterprise values between 1 and 30 million. And we would do evaluation, and then we would look at it, and they'd be like, you know what, it came in at 8 million. I really want to be at 12. And I'd be like, okay, this is what you need to do. We're looking at EBITDA multiples. You need to get your EBITDA to this number, this amount, and come back in a couple of years and let's sell it, right? Very bad advice.
Yeah.
Again, learn from your mistakes. It worked. But I wanted to influence them to start thinking about the exit plan, about the sale before it was too late. Because,
Yep.
they'll come to me and say, hey, Rick, I need to sell. I'm ready to sell. I'm like, okay, but your business isn't ready. They're like, I don't care. I need to get out. And we can sell those, we can run those selling processes, but it's not, the outcome isn't the optimal outcome. It is an outcome and it works, but it's not the optimal. And what I'm finding with these people is if we can sell and we can exit the right way and maximize their value, it's a game changer for retirement. If you have, say, $5 million in your retirement account and we can bump that to 7 or 8 or 10 or 12, game changer. Your retirement looks entirely different that way. We have one chance to get it right. We need to get it right. And it was all about influencing people and being a thought leader in this space. And so I felt like a book would be a great way to do that. You can only reach so many people. And so I felt like get a book out there, and I give my book to business owners all the time and say, read this, learn about it, get educated. And so that's what the book was all about.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough, right? I felt like I needed to do more. So we started the Utah chapter of Exit Planners. It's another way to be an influencer in the group.
Yeah, excellent. Now, you say that was bad advice, but I felt like that was pretty good advice. Why would you say that was bad advice?
It was good advice, but I kind of put them like the sheep before the wolves.
Yeah.
I didn't give them direction. I didn't have people in my Rolodex that I could send them to. I didn't have people that were business coaches that could move the EBITDA needle in big ways.
Yeah.
I showed them what they needed to focus on, which I think was good. Their EBITDA number or their SDE number.
Yep.
So they knew what to focus on, but they just didn't know how to get there.
Yep.
And so it worked, but it was clumsy.
Yeah. We see, and that's what we do. We're a value advisor, right? We work in that space of doing that. And what a lot of people don't realize, and you of course clearly know, is that 98% of all transactions are transacted on a multiple of EBITDA. EBITDA or seller discretionary earnings. A lot of people think, I got all kinds of things, technology, whatever. There are some transactions that are based on, a specific technology that you own or a recurring revenue, but those are the exception. By and large, most transactions are on a basis of earnings. And so you've got to focus on maximizing those earnings so that you can get the biggest transaction that you can. And so a lot of people don't, they just don't believe that, or more importantly, they don't understand how businesses are transacted in their space. And so, you and I probably spend a lot of time talking with folks about that. So now you attack some of the most common issues right up front, right in that whole first section: confidentiality, time frame, seller notes, and more. Now, most business owners have unasked questions about these things. So what role do these unasked questions play in why business owners delay preparing their business for sale until, in many cases, it's just too late to do anything about it.
So I think it's uncharted territory for business owners. They've never done it before. And in many ways, they treat it like death. They know it's impending, but they don't plan, right?
Right.
And so they go into this not knowing what they're doing. And too many times I get a call from a business owner and they need to sell right away, but they haven't planned. And we can sell those companies, right?
Sure.
But the ones that start with the end in mind, I say, mind your exit, don't blind your exit. Get started early. With the very first day when you start your business, say, what is this exit going to like? And so you build them to sell them. Being in this unfamiliar territory, they just don't know what they're doing. Business owners love to know what they're doing. And so if they don't, they kind of move away from it. And so they pretend it's not going to happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. In fact, that's the name of my book, which Maximize Business Value, begin with the exit in mind.
Love it.
And so, because I think it's never, my opinion is it's never too early to start thinking about your exit strategy. In fact, our listeners already know I've done 100 transactions in my career, buying and selling businesses. Mm-hmm. And every business I ever acquired, I didn't pull the trigger on making that acquisition until I could clearly articulate what my exit strategy was going to be. And then you relentlessly work toward that exit. So, I suspect that a lot of business owners just don't know what questions to ask. And when they start engaging in that dialogue, it makes them feel dumb, right? Well, why? Mm-hmm. I mean, I should understand.
Yeah, and they don't like it.
They don't. Yeah. Business owners do not like to feel dumb. Right. And so I'm glad you've written this book in mind, because it's all about kind of getting these things out there and addressing those, because once a business owner can kind of get that whole thing out of their mind about, I don't understand this, then they can start asking the right questions and someone can help them move down that path together. It's interesting that, your comment that they treat it like death. Unfortunately, death is an all too common exit strategy for, that's why I tell people, if you don't have an exit strategy, then your strategy is by default, die behind my desk. And I don't know about you, but I get calls all the time from attorneys or family members who go, my husband died, or I represent the family of a business owner who passed away 6 weeks ago, and we need to sell the business. The minute the owner dies, especially if it's an owner dependent business, the value of that business drops like a rock.
Yeah.
And so I'm in most cases we try to help, but there's not a lot we can do after that happens. So I tell the business owners, or do you want to deal with this now, or do you just want to kick the can down the street to your heirs who are going to have to deal with it? And by the way, they're going to have a less valuable asset. So it's a hard conversation to have. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see business owners make when they sell their businesses?
We talked about the first one, which is a failure to plan.
Yep.
Early. The second one, I would say, is not hiring the right advisory team. I would interview your potential M&A guy or broker, investment banker, whoever it is that's going to help you. I would interview a couple of them, and it costs. The good guys are going to cost some money, right? And like attorneys, you get an attorney that charges $25 an hour, and that's what you get.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. You can find an attorney for $25. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of a sale right now, and decent size. It's an $18 million transaction. And they had an attorney that had drafted their contract with their customers that they've used for years and years, but it has some things in there that's really hurting them on a sale. Right. And so if you don't hire the right people and be prepared to pay them well, and they'll be worth every cent that you pay them and more. And so you've got to surround yourself with a good advisory team, and the team members would be, you need a good M&A guy, a business broker, investment banker, depending on the size of your company. You need I call them deal guys. These are people that do this as a living 100% of the time. They close a lot of transactions. They know what they're doing. You need a really good transaction attorney. You need a really good CPA. You need a really good financial planner that's going to take the money and they're going to invest it for you after it's all done. And at a minimum, you need those four. So that's the first thing, hiring the right advisory team. How about not being educated about the sale? I see a lot of owners that go into this blindly. They haven't taken time to learn, to listen to podcasts or learn about it. They just, as we talked, kick the can down the road instead of picking it up and taking a drink. Well, the more they can learn, the better it is. And another one I'd say is they let well-meaning attorneys drive the ship. You got to have control of your advisor. You got to have a good team, but you got to have control of them also. I've seen many well-meaning attorneys just kill deals, kill transactions.
Yeah. They think they're protecting their client when what they're doing is destroying the ability for them to sell.
Just destroying it. And not understanding how valuation works. I would say that's another big one.
I want to ask about that and just say before we get to valuation, one of the things that we talk about with our clients is all attorneys are not cut from the same cloth, right? And when you say the right, I love it. You and I speak the same language. You got to have the right CPA, you got to have the right attorney, you got to have the right wealth advisor, all of the above. And I would add on to that you want somebody who is experienced in transactions, right? For a CPA and for an attorney. Too many times, and I'm sure you've seen this in your career, deals are killed by attorneys who are not qualified to be working on the transaction anyway. They're a litigator or they're a real estate attorney. Litigators are notorious deal killers, right? And because in litigation world, there's a winner and a loser. In business law, there is compromise, right? And so you try and figure out a way to make that work. And so that's the psychology, I think, that works behind that. But I really think that, having somebody who is experienced in that, when we get our clients to transaction, we always recommend folks who are specific transaction attorneys, right? That they only do transactions because they are skilled in the art of how to get this deal through the juggernaut and get it to a close. And so and CPAs too, you got to understand the tax ramifications of the transaction. And if you have a great CPA and an attorney working together, perhaps a deal can be structured to minimize your tax consequences, right? And so
exactly. And these transactions are middle of the road. I tell my people, you look at them like the event is like a wedding, not a divorce. And you have to treat it that way. Yeah. As we go through the process, you're courting the other person and you're asking them questions, but you're not beating them up. And if we let the attorneys beat them up too bad, then they feel so bad and they walk away from it. So you've got to look at it like that and middle of the road. And I say two requirements. One, it has to be straight up honest or not at all. And two, it has to be middle of the road and fair to both people. Yeah. It's a win-win or we don't do it, period. Yep.
I love that. I love that. Now, you mentioned right before I kind of jumped in and wanted to talk about the team, the whole valuation, business valuation. And I agree with you, but explain to our audience how a business valuation can help in the exit planning process.
So a couple of things. Going through the process of a formal business valuation, you can hop online. They have little calculators and you can just plug in the number till you get the value you want. I'm not talking about one of those. I'm talking about a formal one where you go through that process of getting your financials together, identifying discretionary expenses, and looking at the risk factors with your business. Going through that process is an educational process that's extremely valuable to business owners because they learn the questions that buyers are going to ask. They're going to learn what buyers are looking at and looking for. And then it's a great exercise as a first step. And also at the end, once they understand, I've been on phone calls with business owners. We've done evaluation and they're like, I can't believe this, Rick. You mean if for every dollar I put towards my EBITDA, I get a 4 times return on that in value? like, whoa, yeah, I'm trying to minimize that number for my taxes, right? But it just like the light bulb comes on. I'm looking at a 400% return on my money. And I don't know about you, maybe Bitcoin or one of those, when it was going up, you could get that. But
Yeah,
they
right.
see their business as an investment and not
Yeah.
just a business after that.
Yeah, we always say treat it as an asset, right? You
Yeah,
treat your home as an asset, right? It's going to appreciate in value, and if you decided you were going to sell your home, you wouldn't just get up one morning, call an agent, and then stick a for sale sign. You're going to clean up, you're going to have the carpets cleaned, you're going to paint the walls, and it's all of those things that will add to the value of the house. Same thing. It's not that easy with a business. Sometimes it takes some time for some of the changes that you need to make in your business to actually reach the financial statements, and that's where the rubber meets the road, right? And so I love that. I agree. For our clients that are on retainer with us, and we have lots of clients that are, we actually do a business valuation for them every year. We update it. We show progress that they're making and toward reaching the goal that they stated to us at the beginning, because that's where we start. Is here's where you are today. Let's define where you want to be and when you want to be there, and then let's monitor the progress to how we're making it. And so I love that. I think that they should go through doing that. There are some online tools that are not terrible, but go through the process of really understanding, because the drivers, the value drivers up and down, it's so important to understand those. So before we jump on a break here, when is it too early to start planning for a business exit?
Never too early. From the day when you start the business, you register at your Department of Commerce, start thinking about that exit and what it looks like. Build it to sell it. And here's the beauty. Even if you build it to sell it and don't sell, you build a great business, because exit planning is business planning. And Chris Snyder's talked a lot about that. And I totally believe that. And sometimes we help business owners and they build such a great business, they don't end up selling it. You know what? And good for them.
Yep. Oh yeah. We actually help our clients if they want to make the transition from being a owner operator to being an owner investor, because investors look at businesses differently than operators do. Then we'll help them do that. Many times we'll have a client that's the business is doing well, throwing off a lot of cash. They're like, you know what, I'm too young. I don't want to get rid of it, but I don't want to work in it anymore.
Exactly.
Well, great. Then let's teach you how to do that, how to get the right people involved and be able to own the business as a passive income, and so there's all kinds of ways to do that. Or many times they get through the process and the business is so improved and they're having so much more fun in the business, they just don't want to sell it, right? And so that's
a win, right? We talk about a win-win. That's a win.
Yeah, it is. And but the thing about the exit planning to me is, if you do it properly and you get your business ready for a transaction, you just never know when a bluebird is going to land right outside your door, right? And if you get that out of the blue, unsolicited, ridiculous offer for whatever it is, and your business is ready, well, then you are ready to go. But if you get those ridiculous offers and you're not ready, it's probably going to die on the vine. It's going to die before it ever gets to a close. And so of course, every business owner will tell you, oh, I get offers on my business every day. Well, most of those are not real. And every business owner is being called on the planet by all the private equity, and especially if you're of a certain size. But not all of them are real buyers. But every now and then I hear about those deals that, this just popped up on our radar, and I'm like, great, because the good news is you're ready. Let's investigate, right?
Yep.
And so that's awesome. Look, we're talking with Rick Krebs, and I'm having a great time. I know our audience is as well. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Every business will eventually transition, some internally to employees and managers, and some externally to third-party buyers. Mastery Partners equips business owners to maximize business value so they can transition their businesses on their terms using our 4-step process. We start with a snapshot of where your business is today. Then we help you understand where you want to be and design a custom strategy to get you there. Next, we help you execute that strategy with the assistance of our amazing resource network. And ultimately, you'll be able to transition your business on your terms. What are you waiting for? More time? More revenue? If you want to maximize your business value, it takes time. Now is that time. Get started today by checking us out at www.masterypartners.com or email us at info@masterypartners.com to learn more.
We're back with Rick Krebs, a certified exit planning advisor and author of Sell Your Business by Design, Not by Default. Rick, you're also a CPA, right? And so we talked a little bit about this before the break, but why is it important to engage with a CPA who has transaction experience when selling your business? We talked about that from the attorneys, but why is it important to have a CPA who really understands transactions?
So most CPAs, and I say reformed CPA, that's what I am. But the CPAs are very good historians. And most CPAs spend most of their time either getting books prepared, financials prepared, or doing tax returns. And so they don't see clients or they don't advise clients who are selling their companies on a regular basis, because their core business is something else, right? It's preparing financials and doing tax returns or doing audit reviews. And so they're just not aware of the things that business owners need to be aware of. And I'm speaking in general terms here. So what I find is that, and I'm an M&A advisor as well, so that's my core business. When I find, in fact, our team, there's 2 of us and both of us are CPAs, because I feel like that background is really important in the space which we're in. Because a lot of times these people have bootstrapped these businesses. They've started them from the ground up. And as the business has grown, the level of sophistication for their financials has not grown. You know, maybe their wife was keeping their records on the kitchen table, you know, with a checkbook when it started, and then they got QuickBooks. And so usually there's some housekeeping that needs to be done financially. And I find that my CPA background is very good. It lends itself well to helping clients do that housekeeping they need with the financials and getting them up to par and ready for a sale. Now, CPAs as advisors for people that are selling, if you have a good CPA, we will need them and we will enlist their help as far as calculating the taxes and that sort of thing. But most of those are not deal guys. Most of them are not as familiar with it. So again, you've got to have experts that are experts in this profession of selling businesses and who see these things a lot, because there's some, I don't want to say loopholes, but there's some areas where we can get a little bit creative on the structure that will benefit the sellers to minimize their taxes. And they may not be aware of those tax laws. You know, what's the tax code? 100 and something pages, 100,000 pages, I think is what it's up to now. They just don't know everything. And I don't blame them.
I remember when they used to be able to fit laws on a piece of paper, right? You know, right? I wasn't alive then, but that's the way it used to be. But yeah, the tax law is so crazy now. Do you still practice? Are you still a practicing? I know you keep maintaining your license, but you're no longer doing that.
Nope, I don't. And I don't do it for clients because it's a conflict of interest.
Right.
I do have people in my Rolodex who I work with that are very good. And so I refer them over. So I can help as an advisor to the client and tell them what they need to do. I just can't prepare their financials and represent them in the sale. It's a conflict of interest to do so.
Got it. Yep. I have an attorney on our team that says the same thing to me, that, you know, if he's working with us on the business, so it's a conflict of interest for him to represent them in a transaction. And we have other attorneys that we would send him to. But if he's not involved in it, then we'd like him to do the work because he's just so good. So now since you are a CPA, let's talk about some of the tax considerations that a business owner might face. What are some of those tax issues?
Sure. So there's 2 or 3. One is just a basic understanding of tax law, and that is ordinary income rates are typically higher than capital gains rates. And so when you sell your business, typically they're on asset sale basis. Part of that sales price is going to be ordinary income, and part of it is going to be capital gains. And so you just need to understand that the structure and the allocation are very, very important. There's an IRS form, it's Form 8594, where you allocate the assets, and that allocation can be, depending on the deal size, it can swing your tax bill hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so you just need to be aware of that allocation, how it's made, and aware that you want to put more of the income over in the capital gains bracket and less of it in the ordinary income bracket.
Right.
Yeah. 10,000 foot level, that's what it is.
Yeah, because that's most transactions are kind of asset based. That changes if you're fortunate enough to be one of those folks that gets a stock sale, right?
Yep. And so the three different types, there's an asset sale, there's a stock sale, and there's a hybrid. It's called the Section 338H10 sale, which is a hybrid of the two. And being familiar with those. In fact, the latter one we just spoke about, the hybrid, a lot of CPAs aren't aware of that. They're just not in the business enough to be aware of it. And I have buyers that have bought multiple business over multiple years that aren't aware of that.
Yep.
Little things that can just save you a ton of money.
You just proved right there that you know what you're doing, because I've talked to 1,000 advisors and I've mentioned a 338 H10. No, 10 people out of 1,000 might understand what that is. And so you're right. That is amazing. So since we're talking about this, why don't you talk about business sales types of structures? You've got those three. How do those three different structures work?
Sure. So let's talk about an asset sale. Most of the transactions are done as an asset sale, meaning your entity stays in place. You sell the assets of the business, both tangible and intangible. The assets of the business are sold to the new buyer. They create an entity. They operate under a DBA, and your entity is eventually just closed down, right? It's a shell company after the sale, so it's just closed down. And so those assets that are sold, the different types of assets are taxed differently. And I won't get into too much detail. Just know that, if you have a heavy equipment type company, you're going to look at a recapture situation and have a lot of the sale be ordinary income. If you're a service-based business where most of your assets are intangible assets, then you're lucky because those are subject to capital gains, right? And so it's better. So asset sale on one hand. On the other hand, you have an entity sale or stock sale, meaning you sell the entity. The assets remain in the entity and they go to the buyer. Buyers typically don't like to do that because they lose it. Tax-wise, it's less advantageous to them. If they're doing a $5 million transaction, for instance, they lose roughly $5 million worth of future tax deductions because they get to amortize those assets over 15 years. Well, it's between 5 and 15 years. And so most sales are done as asset sales because it's better for the buyer. And it's not just a little swing, it's millions of dollars of swing depending on your deal size. Once in a while, you have to do entity sales, right? Like I do oil field services company and they have these valuable MSAs and they're with the company. Well, we have to do entity sales. And that's why the hybrid came up, the Section 338H10. And what this is it lets you treat the sale as a stock sale for legal purposes and as an asset sale for tax purposes. So it's a little combination of both. And it is advantageous because the buyer can go ahead and depreciate those assets and we satisfy the legal requirement of the business. You have to be a corporation to do that, or an LLC taxes a corporation to do those.
Okay. So
the other thing, if you're a C Corp, C Corps, it's tough to sell those. You can still sell them, but they're looking at a double taxation. So again, the reason you need to start planning for this years ahead.
Yeah,
we can take C Corps and make a next selection on them. And sometimes we do that, but it takes a few years with your tax planner to carefully do those waters.
Yeah. And I tell folks it's 5 years, 5 years before your transaction, you've got to do that because otherwise you might be subject to a look back.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the last thing you want, right? And when you're trying to sell a C Corp, if you sell the assets out of the C Corp, you have a gain within the corporation and then you pay taxes on it when it comes out as a dividend, right? So you get, it's effective like 60% tax rate.
Yeah,
And,
which is outrageous. It's like the worst, right?
oh, I know. And business owners hate it. And I do too. The
Yeah.
IRS out there with their hand out.
Now, I recently talked with a client who is a C corp that's getting toward a. I just couldn't convince their CPA that they should have transitioned to be an S corp, but there probably wouldn't have been enough time passed anyway. So I had a conversation with the CPA a few weeks ago when I was with the client, and he said, "Don't worry, we're just going to show everything as personal goodwill."
Slippery slope.
What's that?
Yeah, that's a slippery slope.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes.
So don't, get the right advice. When you're talking with your folks, make sure that you get somebody who really understands this. I would even recommend that you might call Rick, because he understands all of this stuff, and we're going to tell you how to do that in just a minute.
So one other thing, sorry, Tom, one other thing I want to bring up before I forget is there are some C corps out there. There's a little known tax law where C corps are not subject to double taxation. In fact, they're not taxed on any of the gains. And what I think happened is, I look back on the law, I think one of the lawmakers had a relative that owned a C corp, and they wrote this like very narrow escape from C corp tax law, where the gains are not taxed. And there's very few that qualify for it, but there is an out. And it's kind of a narrow out, but there is one that people should be aware of.
Is there anything in particular? I mean, the Reader's Digest version that a company would go, oh, I might qualify for this. Is there any kind of criteria that you can share with us on that?
You know what? They need to talk to their CPAs.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, I understand that there's an out for my C corp. Look it up, because again, it's a very narrowly focused practice, and you have to. It's like walking a tight wire almost, but there's a few lucky owners of C corps that have been able to qualify for this and not pay any capital gains on the sale on a C corp.
Boy, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before you tell us about your business, a quick question here. Is there a good way to increase a business owner's selling price?
Yeah. So you'd ask for a good way. I'm gonna give you 3.
Okay.
I could have a whole list, right?
Yeah.
But these are the things that buyers like. One, they like management in place.
Uh-huh.
The business has to run better in the owner's absence than in their presence.
Uh-huh.
So solid management that's going to take it and run with it. They like solid customers. They like to see high customer retention rates. They like to see low customer concentration. Right. So if your customer concentration is high, you need to work on that, go out and get other customers. And business owners sometimes get a little bit lazy with that. Right. But looking at that, when I say high, if your top 3 customers are more than 50, 60% of your business, you need to go find some more customers.
Yep.
Right. And diversify. And they love to see employees that are happy. Now, the employee issue is becoming, I say it's an issue because finding good people is really hard in this market, and there's headhunters out there all the time. I have a digital marketing company, and they called it the Great Resignation. They lost like 5 people in one day.
Yeah.
And so good people, you look at glassdoor.com, what are the ratings? Are the employees happy? And so those 3 things, and then I would add to that, number 4 is you've got to have a product or a service which is unique, and I would say world-class, that's leading the industry. If you have a secret sauce, something that gives you the edge over your competition, they really like that. They like leaders in the industry, whichever industry you're in.
That's awesome. In fact, my next book, which will be released probably around the time that this series is wrapping up, because we're going to talk about my second book at the end of this series for our audience. And it is 65 specific things business owners can do to improve the value of their business. And
great. Love it.
And these 4 things are in that book. And so yeah, it's kind of a follow on to our original book, which is talks about the reasons why you should be doing this and thinking about it, and then we give you specific things that you can do in the next book, which will be coming out here in the fall. So around the time that this podcast is released. So, well, tell us a little bit about your practice and how you help clients drive toward their ideal exit.
So I'm of a mergers and acquisitions firm. We're called Business Sales Group. Been doing this for about 12 years now. And how I got into where I'm at is, well, first I sold my company and I didn't have any help.
Really?
How's that? There's a mistake. We ended up getting attorneys involved, not getting paid, and it was a mess, an absolute disaster. And so after that, I had a friend who did business brokering. He's like, Rick, you ought to do business brokering. So I started doing it. I learned how to help other people not make the same mistake that I made. And I saw we did Main Street stuff, $1 million and less usually. And business brokers do a great job with those. But I saw this underserved space. Investment bankers typically do 30 million and above. Business brokers do $1 million and below. But there's a space in between where I didn't see that people were getting the help that they needed. And so we focus on that space between $1 million and 30 million in value. And with the CPA background, I feel like my skills lend themselves well to business owners on those. And we're all about adding value and having a good exit. So as part of the exit planning, we work with clients early on, and we help them assemble their exit planning team. And we help them start getting educated and get the people that they need and surround themselves with the people who can increase the value of their business, get them started down the track that they need to go for a better exit.
That's awesome. I hope that maybe one day we'll be able to work together, because it sounds like we've got a good fit for some synergy for our work. I was not aware that you sold that business. I'd love to have you on. We do a series twice a year called Tales from the 17% Club, because it's only 17% of the attempted transactions actually reach the finish line. So 83% failure rate. Would you buy a car if you had an 83% failure rate on it? No. So why do you try to sell your business when it's not prepared? Because the odds are against you. But we interview folks on that podcast about their transactions. So if you'd be willing, I would love to have you on and talk about that other transaction and the lessons that you learned from it. And because to me, it's all about just empowering our listeners with good information. And we've had some folks on there that have had bombs, and we've had folks on there that have had real great exits as well. So hopefully we can get you on there. Well, one last question. This podcast is all about maximizing business value. What's the one most important thing you recommend business owners do to build value in their business? One thing.
One thing, I would say get a valuation and learn about how valuation works.
Yep.
Do that early. Be able to take the glasses from a buyer and put them on and look at your business like a buyer would. And the valuation is the first step in doing that.
Yeah, I love that. I think every business owner should, because most business owners have an unrealistic opinion of what their business is worth. And so if you get a valuation, it'll at least help you kind of ground. And then if you need it to be worth whatever your unrealistic expectation was, start working on that.
It segues into so many things, right? The valuation just starts that process. It's the tip of the iceberg. Yep. You can start learning about all the other things you need to learn. But I think that's the single most important, because that's the first step right now.
I love that. I think it's a great step. Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook, even though you've been a great guest here. Yet we've got to ask you our bonus question. And our bonus question is, what personality trait has gotten you into the most trouble through the years?
I try and do too much, Tom. I squish too much in a day.
Yeah. I have unsuccessfully lobbied Congress for years to give us, 20 or 35-hour days, right? But I just can't seem to get there. So, we're all given the same amount of time. What we do with it, right? I totally get that. So how can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you?
My website, www.salesgroup.com. That's shortened for businesssalesgroup.com, www.bsalesgroup.com, or my email is rick@bsalesgroup.com. Or you can see the book on Amazon, Sell Your Business by Design, Not by Default.
Yep, this is what it looks like, and it will be on our website and available in Evergreen. So you can go there and pick it up right from our website. Rick, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for being our guest today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on, Tom.
You can find Rick J. Krebs at the website that he gave you, bsalesgroup.com, or you can find him on LinkedIn. And of course, you can always reach out to me, and I will be happy to make a warm introduction to Rick Krebs. This is Maximize Business Value. This is the Maximize Business Value podcast, where we give practical advice. I forgot where I was there for a second. We give practical advice to business owners on how to build long-term sustainable value in your business. Be sure to tune in each week and follow us wherever you found this podcast, because if you follow us, you'll be notified every time we drop a new one every week. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to learn as much as you can about exit planning by reading books written by CEPA, Certified Exit Planning Advisors, while you maximize business value.
Thank you for tuning into the Maximize Business Value podcast with Tom Bronson. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition on their terms. Learn more on how to build long-term sustainable business value and get free value-building tools by visiting our website, www.masterypartners.com. That's master with a Y, masterypartners.com. Check it out.
That was perfect. I wouldn't make any changes on that.